Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Fireside Whispers podcast. My name is Faye Alexandra, and I'm really, really excited to be here with Dr. Sophia Trevenna today. Welcome, Sophia.
Oh, thank you, Faye. So lovely to be here with you.
Yeah. Dr. Sophia Trevenna is a scientist who chose to lead her entire life by intuition, signs, dreams, and angelic channeling when she was just 30 years old. That was 20 years ago. And this led her to lead a sustainability movement, create one of the world's first B Corps, and impact co-working space and accelerator, become a professor and do her PhD on the economy as generative nature rather than an exploitive machine, and now serves as an angelic channel downloading detailed strategy for world-changing leaders in 25 countries. Wow, Sophia, it's so lovely to have you with us here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to dive in and find out more about your life and what got you to the point of where you're at today, and the field of work that you've created around life and leadership lessons, and really being guided by intuition. Pause. What are we at? There's 128. So there's some background noise. Can you hear it?
In my place?
I can hear this, like maybe the editor can hear it.
Is it my air conditioning? Or
no, it's when I'm talking. There's like, wait, if I'm talking now, yeah, there's like some sort of background noise.
Interesting. I don't hear it.
It's when I'm talking. 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 It's weird. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, it's like a.
Darn. Yeah, I don't hear it on my side.
I think what I'm going to do is start again. End recording. Or maybe we'll just start it. We'll start it again, but we'll start it from however many minutes in, because I prefer to do a better introduction. I have a feeling, because I'm not going to talk much, I think it will be able to be edited out.
Okay.
It's very minor. I'm just noticing.
Well, I just did a whole bunch of audio for my curriculum, and it was really easy to go to iMovie and just go remove background noise, and it just took.
Yeah, this is what the editor does. So let's just start the recording. Okay, so I'm gonna redo the introduction because it could have been better as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of the Fireside Whispers podcast. My name is Faye Alexandra, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our wonderful guest, Dr. Sophia Trevenna. Dr. Sophia Trevenna is a scientist who chose to lead her entire life by intuition, signs, dreams, and angelic channeling when she was only 30 years old. So that was 20 years ago. And this led her to lead a sustainability movement, create one of the world's first B Corps, and impact co-working space and accelerators, become a professor, and do her PhD on the economy as a generative nature rather than an exploitive machine, and now serves as an angelic channel downloading detailed strategy for world-changing leaders in 25 countries. Sophia, it's so wonderful to have you here with us. Welcome to the podcast.
So lovely to be here with you, Faye.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to diving in, to hearing more about your life. You are such an inspiring woman, and it's such a beautiful joy to be working with you, actually, and to be receiving your mentorship on my business journey and my business expansion. So thank you for coming on the podcast today. And I'd love to just dive right in and ask you some questions about how you've managed to live this incredible life of leadership, really led by your intuition. So I'm really looking forward to discovering a bit more about what got you to this point. So firstly, Sophia, how did you begin this incredibly inspiring journey into this world of magic, intuition, and angels?
Oh, thank you for asking. And it's been a pleasure to work with you too. It's just a joy to take what I've been doing for 20 years and work with those that are on the same path. There's so many of us. But when I began this, I didn't have any mentorship or any inspiration or influence. We had just actually started, using the internet. So I was at my lowest point, which I think is how a lot of people find their way if there's not a lot of influence around. I was working as an engineer at IBM. I was a mechanical engineer working in tech. And sorry, I just want to pause. I don't want to say IBM. So if you want to I'll just say I was an engineer working in tech. I think it's better to keep it safe. I was a mechanical engineer working in tech, and I was a leader as a, young 27, 28-year-old woman. And I was realizing that as I was being sent to other countries to set up manufacturing plants, that it was incredibly exploitive, that they're really just pouring pollution into the rivers and only hiring women because they're more docile. It was just horrible. And I tried to do everything I could to change it over about a year. And finally, I was just at my rope's end: anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and just cried to the ethers, like, help. And then all of a sudden, I started to get signs that started to seem to guide me to quit my job. I was out with a friend at a restaurant talking about quitting, and I just said, no one ever quits this job, not as a woman who's gotten this far at this age. And at that exact moment in Toronto with 3 million people, the only woman I knew who had actually quit her job at IBM, who I said IBM. Sorry, love. The only woman I knew that had gotten as far as I had gotten at this company and who had quit about a month before to do something like teach physics to kids came walking into the restaurant. And I looked at her and I said, the only person I know that's actually done this just walked in. And I went and talked with her. And she basically said, quit. It's the best thing I ever did. So I ended up quitting. And then I just kept asking for more and more signs, and they kept coming. And one of them brought me to a class called Technology, Society, and the Environment, which is where I discovered the word sustainability before the world knew of it, and knew I was going to devote my life to that. So it really started with signs, dreams, body knowings, vibrations in my stomach that said, yes, that's the direction to go at every fork of the road. And so many people have asked me about this that I actually wrote my memoir called Life Beyond What I Know. What if you decided to live entirely by intuition? To answer that very question, I tell the story about how it began and how that all the signs and knowings kept leading me forward. I ended up going on a motorcycle journey for 5 months through a few countries in Central and South America to go and heal a deep part of myself. I ended up being guided to the Rocky Mountains, where I used intuition to do a sales job, which I ended up doing for a few hours a day, or just to be the top salesperson in the country. So I ended up getting guided to all sorts of things, including moving to Hawaii, where I came as really an unknown student and ended up leading a movement over the next 10 years for sustainability.
Wow. Wow. It's so incredible. And it sounds like there was a real moment that took you on a different path. So could you tell us a bit more, I mean, you've lived quite the life already. It's incredible. But can we go back a little bit to that moment where you felt somewhere along your path where it just all clicked into place and it made sense for you on a deeper level to take this journey that you've taken?
Yes. I feel that the 5-month motorcycle journey, where we had to use intuition for everything, including setting internal alarm clocks to get up in time to make sure we were on the road for enough time to get between towns in Colombia. Um, there was a morning where we both woke up at 5 in the morning. I was with a friend, both with alarm bells inside of us. And we drove out of that town just as we saw guerrillas driving into that town to start some sort of violence. And we had just avoided that using intuition. I would hold a vibration of something we needed to do or find, like a restaurant or a place to stay that felt like the right feeling. And we would then just follow intuition, follow the feeling of expansiveness at every fork in the road. Every time it was time to turn at an intersection, we would both feel, which made us feel bright and open, or versus collapsed or closed. And we would follow that expansive feeling and end up finding the exact thing we were trying to find. So I learned to follow the expansiveness, the feeling of brightness inside of me, of awakeness, of vibrancy versus collapse, stagnation, the shoulders coming forward, the body hunching down. And we did that for so many months in South America when I was just turned 30, that by the time I left there, I knew that's how it worked. And I then just spent the rest of my life applying that to other things I needed to do, like finding the exact right students for my honors program in sustainability at the University of Hawaii, like finding the right investor for my new co-working space. All of the things that I ever needed to do afterwards used the same method, but it really clicked in that journey when we were away from technology, away from everything we had ever known, on a mission to find a long lost family member that we found that created a deep healing for me. That's also the huge chunk of my memoir, that motorcycle journey, and then how I applied it when I came back.
Wow. Do you know what? I love talking about intuition, because when we really open up and we can really listen, it can be our deepest, most powerful internal compass. And I love hearing you share about that, because I was just reflecting on the fact that, we are having this conversation because of intuition. Like, I will hand on heart say, we were led together, our lives collided for a reason, and here we are, sat here doing this podcast, which is great. But I never take anything lightly that lands in my lap. And a friend sent me your details and said, you have to work with Sophia. And I just go, okay, yes. And it's that connection that whatever lands in my lap, there's some discernment for sure. I get to feel into my body. But that sense of like, things happen for a reason, and we collide with certain beings to either evolve us and spiral up, or collapse us, as you say. And that is the lesson we get to learn. But in that process of discernment, we get to choose by tuning into our internal compass, by tuning into our intuition of whether we go left or we go right, or we stay put. And it's that beautiful dance with, is it intuition? Is it discernment? Is it a knowing? Is it the truth? And that is the inner ability to find our way through our connection to ourself, our connection to our higher self, our guides. And I just love that you are so powerful in that you've led your whole life living this way. So thank you for being an inspiring example for us all to reconnect with our internal knowing. We all have that. And it's something I love teaching with my work as well, is that deep inner connection, especially as women, like that powerful interconnection to our internal being, our world inside of ourselves, that can then impact our external reality.
So beautifully said. I love working with you, and I love hearing your story and your journey as well. And so many, because this isn't something that's unique to us. It's everyone has it inside. And whenever we shut it down and don't listen to it, I feel like this is a lot to do with the mental health crisis of today, which is that we've shut down one of our faculties that is innate to all of us. And what I love about you is that you are just so awoke in yours, and you're using it professionally. I mean, I didn't start using it professionally until, way later in my 40s. So it's so inspiring to know that there is a generation and even more generations to come where this is going to be more normalized. And it's your work. It's these conversations that the world gets to see that have really never been seen before. If you look at the media and how intuitives have been portrayed in history, we have like them being imprisoned and, therefore men's delight in I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, right? We have sort of, Phoebe from Friends, which is one of my favorite shows, don't get me wrong, but still there's not intuitives that have brought that faculty to the forefront to use with their discernment and their rational side, which you and I both strongly have, to actually support business and life decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's powerful. It is the most powerful way of attuning to what's right for us. Like, what is the next step to take? And we all have that internally, but we don't use it. And so I think the beginning of this opening up to allowing it to be our guide is to start having discussions like we are right now about it. And it's always been so taboo. And so my next question, going down that path of taboo, but I would love to ask you, Sophia, what was the seed point in realizing you were connected to your own angels and guides?
Ooh, right. I didn't know anything about this. And by the way, I grew up with no religion. So, and I was a hardcore scientist. So anyone that talked about it, I just wasn't into. We didn't have the word woo woo back then, but if we did, I would have been anti woo woo. So, and I didn't believe in or think about God or angels or anything like that. What truly happened is that as I was discovering these faculties within myself and using them to navigate life and finding great measurable success, like being the top salesperson or finding the thing I was trying to find, I thought it was physics. And in part of it is, there's a metaphysics to this world for sure. This earth school dynamic of how nature works for sure. There's a metaphysics conversation instinct of all animals are somehow having a silent quantum physics conversation for the animal to find the water or find the mate. So yes, there's a physics to it. And that's what I was exploring. I never expected in a million years for angels to come to me. And they did when I was in an ashram in British Columbia. And I was, again, I think, just opening myself to what would heal me. When you get really still in somewhere like an ashram, or when you take that time for yourself to get out of the context of life, to tap into something, I felt a pain, I felt a wound, and I knew it had been there for a long time. And I just opened myself to, in this quiet place, I want to heal. And I saw angels enter the room. And when I mean saw, it was like an overlay over my actual sight. My eyes were closed, but I could see the room with my eyes closed, and white light poured in, and white angels came. And there was about 5 or 6 of them. They were smaller and larger, in that it looked like it was women angels holding children angels and other women holding them. And it felt like they had been through everything I had been through as a woman and as a child. And they sent me this energy of benevolent love of, we know what you've been through, you can let it go now. And I fell apart crying, like inconsolable grief just pouring out of me. And I could only do it because I felt their love. I felt like they were holding me. And they just let me flow and flow and flow until it was released. Someone came in the room, in the meditation room at the ashram, while this was happening. I could not open my eyes. I could not move. And I just simply said, I can't move, and I can't physically open my eyes. I am having a profound experience. And they said, okay, I'll leave you. But that's how much I was so locked into this experience. So that was the first time. And when I finished crying, they told me I was going to be a lot better now. And then a swamp, like literally an Indian Swami, the woman who had started this ashram, came to me right about here. And I couldn't open my eyes. She was in my third eye, which I had heard of, but never had an experience with. And she talked to me for maybe 2 hours, told me about my life, what I was here for, what was going on in the world. I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. And she basically told me that it was time to start following my higher path, and to stop being sad about things that had come before, to know that I was healed, and to start focusing on my purpose and calling it to me. And afterwards, she made me promise I would go tell someone. And I was terrified to go tell someone. But I went in, and the first person I saw that worked there, I told her. And she said, oh, that happens all the time. That the Swami comes and visits people. That's how yogis visit each other. And I was just like, what? I thought she was alive. And they said, no, she died 12 years ago. And I said, I mean, the woman I met had such a distinct personality that was different than I thought from the pictures. She's just so sharp and focused, and gave me structure and instructions. She said, that's her personality. Did you not see a video of her? And I said, no. And then she showed me the video, and it was the exact woman I had just met.
Wow. How moving.
It was, as you can imagine, life-changing, paradigm-shifting. I knew people from the other side could visit and be the same person they were.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So powerful. And so how have you continued to develop the relationship with your guides?
Sure. So that was my first experience with angels. I don't know that I ever saw those angels again. What happened is then that was in December of 2005. And by April of 2006, I had followed signs to follow my purpose to Hawaii and moved there. 20 people in 1 week told me to about Hawaii. It just was in my field everywhere as signs. Even I was at a restaurant by myself, and the waiter said, "Why don't you read this book on Hawaii while I get you your food?" There was that many signs. So I'd never been there. I went there, and it ended up that they were just at the brink of wanting to make sustainability happen, even though there was no renewable energy there. There was no recycling. It was like going back in time. But there was enough people that I talked to that wanted to make this happen that I was like, oh, I want to be part of the beginning of this. So I'd followed my guidance there, and I lived off grid alone in the jungle behind the university, up at the very top of the mountain on a valley floor with nothing else man-made in sight. So it was a screened in platform with like a couple walls, a tin roof, showered outside. And so I was deeply off grid, away from people, deep in nature. And the first time I meditated there, I realized I could float above my body while I meditated and see the whole jungle and see my house and even see me on my bed, which I'd never experienced before. And then I felt this warm glow above me. And I looked up and there was like a cloud, and I couldn't help but float up into it and explore it. And when I came in, it was like a flat floor with cloud walls, and there was 6 very clear as day. I could see every hair on their head, every line in their face. They were different ages, different like people, but they were all white. And they turned to me sort of surprised. And then they came and enveloped me with love, like a benevolent love that's indescribable. I think when I wrote about it in my memoir, I said, I thought I had known love before this, but that was just a drop compared to this ocean. And they held me, and each one of them, one at a time, gave me very specific instructions. And this is actually where my memoir ends, meeting them. And I share each of the very specific instructions they gave me, including how to hold myself in this movement, how to show up as even a young person with all the, older leaders, all of these very specific things. And then the last thing they told me is, when you go back to your body, you're going to immediately get an email inviting you to something very important. Make sure you go and use your full voice. And when I got back to my body, I heard ding, and an email came, even though there wasn't really much connectivity down there. And it was that exact email. And it started me speaking in front of hundreds of people to leave the movement.
How incredible.
Yeah.
How
And
incredible.
they were my guides, and I visited them almost every day for the next about year.
And do you feel like that connection is still so relevant in your work that you do in the world now, in the way that you help people to have that guidance in their life? So do you connect with those guides, or maybe other people's guides? Like, what does that look like in your field of work now?
Sure. Um, I'll say that after 10 years of me being in Hawaii and working with guidance to do all the things I did that you mentioned before, um, after I left the jungle, I went and moved right in the ocean, enjoyed community more, and I didn't see them that clearly. And it actually was a very specific day. They said that you're never going to visit us this way again, because you're going to start to feel. And I remember going, no, and falling back into my body. And when I opened my eyes, I felt way more dimension of emotion. And I then very shortly after moved down out of the jungle, but I could feel them and I could hear their messages whisper, and I would dream about them sometimes. And I would fall, I could feel the expansiveness versus the collapse. It's almost like what they taught me in the year. Now it was time to embody it and live it.
Mm.
Live into it without always talking with them. It was like the training wheels were off, and now it was time to go back in. And that's when I started structuring businesses and doing things that were a lot more like concrete and pragmatic in society. So I wasn't seeing them as much. But then for the next 8 years, I always felt them, and I always could feel their little whispers and their little nudges and the signs and the flow of things, the expansiveness versus the collapse. Then 10 years in, while I have a position at the university, my co-working space, my business accelerator is running its first cohort. I have a consulting firm. I went to the mainland and I tried to go back a handful of times, and every time I ended up in the hospital. So it was like a collapsed nerve, appendix removal, like a twisted intestine. I mean, finally lying in the hospital, I was like, just give me a sign of what I'm supposed to do if I'm not supposed to go back. And the doctor came in and said, look, you have so much healing to do from all these ailments. Go home to your family in Canada. Don't go back to Hawaii. Let them take care of you. So I went back and it took weeks to recover. And while I did, I finished my PhD. And as soon as I was healthy, I got invited to go to San Francisco to a birthday party. And when I was there, the woman whose birthday it was, I had done intuitive readings for her where I'd shared intuition for her life that she found incredibly profound. And she announced to the whole birthday party that I could do readings for people, and if anyone wanted one, to go see me. And I had never done that, was just like, but a dozen people lined up, and the first man that was in front of me, I could see his guides. And I had never had that experience before, never had seen anyone else's guides. I could feel them, see them. They gave me very specific messages, and I started to realize my guides and their guides were connecting and together allowing me to share whatever that person needed to hear. And very specifically, I said, you work with people that are really in trouble and you feel like lost at how to help them. But what you need to do is remember that they don't know the basics, like how to be kind to someone or what's good or bad, like start there. And he started crying. He worked in the prison system, helping people come back to society, and never thought that they needed the basics. He was trying to teach them to type and things. So instantly I had the first beautiful experience of how profound it was to share people's guidance. And then that started me being guided to 25 countries, where I would get on this flight to sit in this seat, and I would meet my next client who was the director of this global organization that needed to structure a new division. Then it went on like that until I had 100 clients in 25 countries. And yeah.
Wow, you really have followed that path
Yeah.
with so much expansion. It's so beautiful to hear. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story in that intimate way. And I just feel like, maybe some of the listeners are probably thinking potentially, well, do we all have guides? How can I connect to my guides? So would there be any advice or anything that you would share with anybody listening around like the starting point of this journey for someone who hasn't yet maybe ever connected to anything in a different dimension?
I love this. I love this question, because this is the second one I get asked. I always get asked, how did this begin for you? And how does this work? And then the second one is like, wait, can I do that? So everyone does have 1 to 3 guides at least. So everyone has them, and you planned your life with them, and they're here to help you along your path. And I actually wrote a second book called The Book of Inner Clarity. It's a smaller, tight read of just a few hours of the potent learnings from my 20 years. And it's exactly designed for the tools you need to start opening your own connection, or develop further your own connection if it's already opened. And the very simple exercises in it are to feel what feels expansive in your body, and to learn how to feel in the moment of a decision, which one feels expansive and which one feels collapsing, and how to make sure you're not projecting your mind or your feelings onto that answer, but to how to get clear first. And that's why it's about clarity. So that's one thing, is to know how to be very neutral about a choice, to know that you could be at peace with both answers, going to the party or not going to the party, for example, and practicing with really simple, benign things first that won't matter too much if you get it wrong. I'm not a fan of that word, but if it ends up being that you felt strongly you should go to the party, but you don't have fun, then there's not a big loss. But I found that everyone I work with, when they start practicing feeling whether a choice feels expansive or collapsing, and then playing it out, they start to learn how it feels in their body, and to trust that body signal, and doing it in small ways before it matters in bigger ways. So that's just one of the 7 chapters I have on how to open your own connection. And then they get more and more deep and complex. But the last one is one of my favorites, which is a small sort of mantra of asking for the next step of something that you know is a really deep heart's desire, like the next step of finding a partner or knowing who your next client is or what your purpose is. So that one, it took me 7 years to develop this very specific language of how to ask for the next step and to clear the mind of projections into what it might be, but to really receive a true higher possibility beyond what you know. So that book really contains a lot of tools, like really the summary of the 20 years learning into a little handbook. But I would say the first thing is to start to recognize what feels expansive and what doesn't, and play it out for yourself, and start to know what your true heart's desire is, and ask for the next step with gentle aha moments, and see what shows up in your path.
Beautiful. Yeah. What reminds me of hearing you say that is the muscle testing kinesiology technique of the body going weak when it's a no, or it's not it's going against the expansion of your life, and then the body getting stronger when you ask it a question and it's more life affirming. So there's more strength. So it just reminds me of that beautiful technique that David Hawkins teaches in the Map of Consciousness around, the kinesiology of finding answers within our body, because our body knows, doesn't it? And it's that
Yeah.
deeper relationship to our body as well.
It's everything, isn't it? And I actually have a whole chapter that introduces David Hawkins' work and his ability to test the body as it holds different emotions too, and how it's so much stronger with joy and so much weaker with anger, and how you can, not to say that any emotion's bad, but when you have anger, if you can meet it with curiosity, it starts to soften the impact on the body. And this really matters over time of how we hold energy in the body and respond to it, because we start to get ill and we start to age and we start to get depressed. All of these things happen when we're holding this lower vibration energy that makes our cells actually weak, physically weak. And so we can learn to meet life with curiosity and bravery and higher perspective, then we actually start to reverse age. And our physical body gets stronger and stronger. I am healthier and more physically strong, and probably even look younger than I did in my early 30s.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. You are so beautiful and so incredibly youthful. I mean, you're 50, right?
Yeah.
And it's incredible that you possess such a I mean, you're glowing. Let's put it frankly. So, I know beauty and health is of utmost importance to you. So I'd love for you to share more about your personal principles and practices for doing, a lot while staying whole, healthy, and vibrant over the many years of your entrepreneurial journey that requires so much stamina. So I'd love to ask a bit more about that.
Oh, thank you for asking that. It took a long time for me to come into owning my importance of beauty, but it is really important to me because I feel that beauty and truth, there's a reason those two things go together. There's a wholeness that happens in the inner beauty, but then what I noticed is that there was an outer beauty that went along with it, which wasn't my intention. And yet I thought, oh, and I've always felt like everyone has their own unique beauty. I would have students come to me sort of insecure about a body part or their image, what they felt about themselves, and I would always say, rock the hot you've got. You're a beautiful curvy size 12, own it, be it. Let's, or one student, she had leukemia, and so she was bald and she had gorgeous long hair. And I said, let's look at what younger women with, really short hair are wearing. Oh, bright red lipstick. Let's get bright red lipstick. So it's always like, it's where you are, rock the hot you've got. So what I found is that when you're focusing on the inner beauty, the outer beauty just follows naturally. And all of a sudden, whatever beauty you have available to your highest expression in that moment starts to shine through. If you've ever seen someone all of a sudden fall in love, they have an inner glow, like a light bulb just went on, and you're like, wow, I saw them last week and they looked, 50, and this week they look 30, and it's because they fell in love. When you fall in love with yourself, the same thing happens. And I had a whole bunch of health journey things. When I first got to Hawaii and started leading the movement, I went from a size 4 to a size 12. I was so anxious and overwhelmed. And then I started to focus on self-love and bathing myself in self-love after I discovered David Hawkins' work and realized how important it was to bathe myself in a high vibrational energy. And all of this is included in that book, The Book of Inner Clarity. And I started to, again, reverse age and come into my healthiest form and my muscular strength for all these metaphysical reasons we're talking about. And I see people later that hadn't seen me for years, and they said, "What happened?" And I said, "Self-love." I just would say my answer is self-love. It's like maybe when you're younger, you can get away with loathing yourself and not have physical repercussions. But as you get older, that goes away. And I have done things like had a negative thought about someone in my life and by accident grabbed the wrong end of my curling iron and seared my hand, and looked down and seen red bubbles coming up in my hand. And I've thought, what was I doing when I did that? I had a really low vibration thought about someone. That's not okay. That, yeah, maybe things aren't great with us right now, but I'm going to send them love because they're in a difficult journey. And I was like, I don't need my seared hand to remind me to hold high love for them. And as I thought that, I started to see energy radiate off my hand, and I grabbed it and I just pulled it out, and my hand reversed and the bubbles went away, and it looked exactly like this. Rough. It was kind of rough, but it looked like this. I reversed it and I did it with love.
Beautiful. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree about this foundation of self-love, and it's so important, and I've witnessed it myself in my own life. Like, I struggled with my weight for years and body image and this stuff around eating disorders, and I just thought there must be another way. And I found out that I had to go on the journey of loving myself. And that was my version of life showing me a mirror. Hey, Faye, you need to learn to love yourself no matter what. And when I finally started to love myself, and I would wake up in the morning an hour early, sit in the mirror naked, slouched over, holding my wobbly parts, holding my, my boobs, and just being like, I love you. Even though you look like this, I absolutely love you. Even though it might not be quite perfect, you are perfectly imperfect. And I would just love and love and love on myself. And it was so hard, and it took weeks for me to find it not cringy.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize my body was getting leaner and fitter and slimmer and more toned and more beautiful. And it was in lockdown. I was not going to the gym, and I'd spent my whole life in the gym trying to figure out how to architect a beautiful body. And I realized I already have a beautiful body, and it was the process of falling in love with it as it was that actually developed and designed an even better physique, one that I'd only ever dreamt of having. And I walked my dog every day, and that was about it. I think I did a few runs and a bit of yoga, but it really wasn't about the food or the exercise. Of course, that helped, but it was the first time that I realized, oh my gosh, I really needed to learn how to love myself. And by the journey of loving myself, I then had my dream body. And I was also unattached to it being any which way, but it was the process of loving it as it was, regardless, even if it never changed. And then as a result, letting go of that attachment to it needing to be different. It was different. And I was like, what? I woke up one day and I'm like in the mirror, like, holy moly, you're looking fine. And I just thought, where did this happen? This was a matter of like 6 weeks, 2 months. I remember my sister coming home from being abroad, and she was absolutely gobsmacked. What happened to you? What are you not eating? Or what are you, where are you running? What are you? And it's self-love. And so it's the foundation of my work that I teach now, because I agree, it is the core of everything.
Yes.
So important.
Yes. I'm so happy you had. Yes. It's metaphysics. It's like gravity. If you love, you will beautify inside and out. It's just how it works. And I'm so glad that you shared that story and that you had such a similar experience. I really feel like if there's one message, like if I was told there's one message I could share, it would be like, love yourself in every way, send love to every cell, send love to every hair, every wrinkle. I mean, I don't Botox or filler or color my hair. Every gray strand, every crinkle, every wrinkle. I just am just like, I just love. And I feel like this is something that's so simple, but if people really knew how powerful it was, then it could literally
we'd all be doing it.
It makes a difference in relationships, in being a business leader, in what you put out as your product. It can change things in a systemic way, I believe, too. And then it's interesting because I reached that point. Let's say I reached that point at 43-ish, I think. And then By 45 or 46, I was like, had gone as far as I could gone with what self-love could do for me, which was pretty far. But I noticed I still didn't sleep great. I still had dreams that would wake me up intensely. I still had like I didn't have like panic attacks or depression, but I had a ruminating mind that still was working on things more than I wanted it to. There's still some things. So I actually asked the angels if there was anything that could be supportive beyond self-love. And I actually got the download for a morning supplement protocol that was a mix of about a dozen things that they told me one at a time, and they would tell me in detail about it. They would say things like, you need to take, 10 to 20 milligrams of lithium. And I'm like, lithium's in batteries. I don't understand that. And then they said, no, it actually in small doses is really good for bringing you into your calm nervous system. And I had been in a bit in my fight and flight nervous system my whole life, having trauma when I was younger, and then being an entrepreneur and being a trailblazer and a leader. It was intense. So they prescribed this to me, and I went and looked it up, and lo and behold, at exactly 10 to 20 milligrams, lithium is something that's naturally created and calms things, and it's found in the natural water systems of many systems. And someone did a study of at least 20 different cities where they measured how much was in the water between 5 and 20 grams, and they found that the more lithium, the less per capita there were reports of chronic depression, of suicide, of gun violence, whatever. It calmed people. There was a true thing to it. So that's just one of the dozen they gave me. And I put them together, and I took them for a few years and had a few other people take them for a few years. I actually measured their mine and other people's mental abilities, including memory, logistical performance, all sorts of things, language understanding, and everyone went up 20 to 40% in 5 or 6 major areas of the brain, including people with ADD and stuff. So I'm not bringing that to market. And as people got into their calm nervous system and cleared the clutter of their brain and the way it was used, it became a place of beauty and started to allow intuition. So people's intuitive gifts naturally opened because they got into their calm self and cleared their brain. So that's one thing. I also was given a natural sleep combination of things that already exist on the market, but putting them together in combination just before you went to bed would put me in a deep sleep. And everyone I've given it to, 2/3 of the people go, oh my God, that also rejuvenates the hair and the skin. There's a system that we have that uses that's designed to regenerate our mitochondria, our cells, our skin, our hair, everything. Half of it's used to create some of the things that we can take by supplement. And when you take this exact amount by supplement before bed, it allows that system to not have to do that. And instead it regenerates your hair and your skin, et cetera. And you combine that with some building blocks for that process, your hair grows. Everyone's hair grew, their hormones came into balance, the wrinkles decreased. You know what I'm saying? The glow happened. So I've taken it as far as self-love. And then I found some other things the angels gave me that I'm now bringing to market as actual products people are going to be able to buy.
So beautiful. So
Yeah.
beautiful. What a journey. What a magical life that you lead. Thank you so much, Sophia. It's been an absolute joy to hear you share about your beauty tips and your life led by intuition and the self-love. And so my last question to you, Sophia, is, I would love for you to share with the listeners a whisper or a piece of wisdom that you would love our listeners and next guests to know from your heart to theirs.
Thank you for asking this. I think it can be glamorized what we talk about, that it means avoiding life and everything just falling in your lap and being easy. And as most of us know, doing the work, facing the shadows, rising past the naysayers and the inner critic to do our bigger work is really, really challenging. And often guidance and intuition takes you into those challenges, but it also supports you through them. So I would say when the expansiveness takes you into having to face that conversation with that ex-boyfriend you never had, or go have that conversation with your mom, or start sending love to your body in the mirror, even though you don't want to look at your body. Like when you're guided into hard things, don't think it's wrong or bad or you misheard. Give it a go. Buy the ticket and go on the ride. Play it out fully, be with what comes up, know you're strong enough, and ask for more guidance and more signs to be with what comes up so you can make it through the valley and come out to the new crest. and get the rewards for that hard work. So just know it's not avoiding the work, it's taking you consciously into the work, and stay conscious and make it all the way through, and don't get off because you think you did it wrong or you misheard, etc. And just keep that awareness and presence through each step, and it will catapult you to beyond what you knew. But it doesn't just take you there, it doesn't bypass the challenges and the overcoming inner and outer. It takes you to them, through them. So I would just stick with it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sophia. What a beautiful piece of wisdom. And I've loved talking to you today and hearing about your stories. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing all of your wisdom with all the listeners today.
Thank you so, so, so much as well. And I'll just add that I just launched a course, Intuition 101 for Everyone. And it is guided meditations and explanations of 10 different ways of approaching developing your own intuition. And you can find everything I've talked about on my website. It's really simple, divinestrategy.co.
Brilliant. Thank you. And that's where everyone can find Sophia, on her website. Thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to looking at reading some of your books as well. So thank you for talking about those and your memoir. It all sounds so inspiring. What a beautiful journey.
Thank you. And you as well. It's been so wonderful to connect with you, and you are the trailblazers of the future. And I'm so grateful you're tapping in and turning it into a profession and guidance for other people. It's all of us rising together in this way of integrating these worlds of inner knowing and the mind and purpose, all putting it together. And you're trailblazing that. So it's been a joy to be with you too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, love. Yeah. Thank you to Intuition for guiding us together today and for the work that we're doing together. How beautiful. How juicy. All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you, Faye.